guy right on under. Hi everybody, I'm Squeetee, and in this video I'll be giving a quick recap and main points I found most interesting from the April 30th Ashes of Creation livestream. The overall livestream was themed around, I would say, the art team. Intrepid showed off several different character designs and cosmetic items, from different head styles to armor pieces. Nothing I personally found exciting or interesting. Intrepid did show off 2 video clips throughout the stream of dungeon combat, and I'll be playing them in the background. The combat looked on the faster end for an MMO. I felt I could distinguish each character having a different class, or at least different builds from the skills they used. The combat was full of effects. Maybe too many effects. At times I needed to rewind the livestream just to see what was going on. I do not expect the current level of effects to make it to live, and if they do, I greatly expect a slider to reduce the amount of effects on screen or turn down how many particles they have. The first topic I found most interesting from the stream was a question asked about leveling speed. Steven from Intrepid replied to the question, stating that reaching max combat level would take over a week of hard gameplay. And generally the game would be on the harder side of leveling, and that really excites me. I enjoy games where it takes time to level. It takes effort. It's not something handed out like a participation trophy. Intrepid also went on to mention that combat leveling isn't the only path to level that will take significant time. I would assume they're referencing the crafting, gathering, and processing professions. There's also many different religions. There's the Trading and Thief Guild, and there's fishing actually to level. Even any guild you join will level up in some sort of way. So for me, a big positive bit of information was given out for leveling. The second topic is the use of banners in Ashes of Creation. I was first introduced to banners in Star Wars Galaxies many years ago, but those banners were pretty generic and pathetic. They only gave out a simple stat buff to friendlies that were in a nearby location. There was nothing, no other benefit to it, and the distance or the range was actually pretty small. Steven spoke of banners in Ashes as potentially being an element of the Bard class, depending on what spec the Bard was. It could be something that was placeable by the Bard, but really didn't give any other further details. I assume some sort of buff. Steven also mentioned that guild officers would potentially have some sort of banner functionality if the guild specialized in a certain way. The way Steven spoke about the banner for guilds was either a group buff for being nearby or some sort of rallying indicator for a guild or squad, or some combo of the two. And perhaps different banners depending on what guild specialization you chose. I don't know what specializations there are exactly going to be. I don't know if like there's damage boosts, health boosts, speed boosts. I don't know what they are, but it could be something like that. And then that brings me to the final point. There wasn't much from this stream, so it's pretty quick and simple. The final point of interest in the live stream was revolving around the nodes. The nodes are personally my biggest interest in the game. I really look forward to becoming a mayor, defending the nodes, building them, constructing them, destroying them, and creating a community around the node is really big for me. So the first mentions of nodes was about caravans. The caravans would be able to transfer between land and sea modes. To me, this was pretty big because they had never really mentioned about any sort of transforming. They had previously mentioned that there was land caravans and there would be eventually sea ones, but never that they could simply straight transition when you got to the coast. They did say there would be about a 1 to 2 minute timer of this process, which I'm totally cool with, and it was a vulnerability timer. But I assume, you know, depending on if it's a caravan, I think there's caravans for questing. You're going to get bigger bonuses for sending caravans over further distance. And if it's personal use, well, if you're moving between the continent and the big ocean in the middle, well, you want to move over the sea, or you have to. So I just thought the whole element was pretty cool and interesting. that you don't need to have two different sets of caravans, like bring it to a seaport, transfer there, and then go. You can just go to a beach that you find isolated or protected, or somewhere that you don't think enemies will be at that will raid you, and you can just go from there. So that was a pretty interesting one. Another point that somewhat is in conjunction with the caravans was the access to node warehouses between different nodes. Intrepid shared that anyone could have storage space in any node in the world. They didn't say how much, that maybe you only get 5 slots in a tiny node somewhere off in the corner of the map, while at your home citizen node you get 100 slots. They didn't say anything like that, but you will have some sort of access to every node in the game with some sort of storage at their warehouse. And that storage would be isolated between the nodes, so that would enforce the need for caravans to move your goods back and forth. And that's what really excites me about, bringing back to the caravan point, was that caravans are a huge PvP element and a risk and reward in the game that I think is going to be a really cool element for people to basically move huge shipments of goods across the continent, and just really crazy events, natural events could happen through PvP. So I really look forward to that. And then they also mentioned there was a question following up on the storage in the nodes. The question was, what happens to your storage items after a siege? So especially if you're in this, you're in, it's your node and you've lost. What happens to your items? So Intrepid laid out what happens to basic materials after the siege was over and your siege, it's either the node was destroyed or downgraded or something like that. These materials are the raw resources, processed materials. So I don't know if it's like you take cotton and you turn it into a shirt or some sort of like material, and then that can be made into something else. Or maybe like the option, or another one would be like ore. Like you got iron ore, you process it into an iron ingot. Well, that's processed materials, and then you can use that to make a component that would finally go into, say, a sword or a piece of armor. So if it's a raw material, processed, or a crafting component, those items were specifically talked about. Other items like finished products for weapons or armor, or maybe like a boat or something like that in storage, weren't referenced, and I kind of assume that they're not going to be items that are affected by sieges. I think those you'll just get back normally after the siege is over. But the items that were talked about, basically there's 3 things that happen. The one is the majority of the items go back to you. So if you have a stack of 100, let's say you have a stack of 100 iron ingots. Well, let's say it kind of sounded like at least 60 of them will go back to you. You'll probably have to go to where the node was, pick your goodies up that were left after the siege, whatever it may be. There might be burning wreckage from the node or something. You go there, you pick your stuff up and go. 20 of those ingots sounds like they'll just get outright destroyed. They're just gone. Which is good to keep the market from getting flooded with goods, people hoarding goods. Also keeps prices on the server from going too crazy, and things balanced if there's not a abundance of supply. It's basically like a money sink, but it's outright just getting rid of the resources instead of the credits or the dollars or whatever it is, the coins. And then the third option was that the last 20 ingots will go to the winners, the people that destroy the siege or the node in the siege, basically spoils of war. And it gives a reward for them for doing the siege on top of everything else they've already done. So maybe you're sieging a node and you don't really care about the node, you don't need it to downgrade to upgrade yours. Maybe you're in a metropolis already and you just want more resources. Well, you start the siege, which can be costly from what Intrepid has shared, but you could get a huge reward in the end with all these resources. So it's a trade-off, and it's also, if you got an enemy guild there, it might just ruin their day if they're out of, they're down 1,000 iron ingots. Well, that's I don't know how many swords that could be, or armor pieces, or however much it could be. It could be a big blow to the guild or the city or whatever. And this also, the whole concept of losing material, either to your enemies or just outright going away, really enforces the incentive for players to participate in the sieges, to spend time with their nodes, make a community, bring guilds in. If you're a mayor, you want to have a successful guild in your city. If you're not already a guild leader, like guild leader and a mayor could be the same person, but if you're just a mayor of a node, you want to bring a guild in, or two or three guilds in, to defend it. You want to listen to the guilds. You almost like you want to make a council within your city or node to understand what they want to make them happy, then to, like a politician, basically, to have a successful city and defend it against attacks. And then I assume this will translate to the future castles that are optional, that the four of them that will eventually, I don't know if they're going to be at launch, I'm not sure on that, but the castles eventually guilds can take over to make alliances to defend and capture and all that. It just seems like there's a huge community building aspect that is being made, and it's really interesting because I haven't really seen this before in any games personally. Especially MMOs are closest to community aspect games, but I just haven't seen it like this, where there's elements that force people to come together, and then there's elements that are like, hey, this is beneficial, but you don't have to. It's more than just, hey, here's guilds. You can put 50 people in a guild. Maybe you'll like each other, maybe you don't. You do raids every once in a while, you're done. This is, we have a goal that we're going to bring 3 guilds together of 50 people each to do and defend this node, or take down other nodes, or whatever it may be. And this is also brings in, they also mentioned alliances, and bringing in alliances from other nodes. So to me, it sounded interesting about the whole community aspect is that you can team up with other nodes to defend yourselves. And to me, this turned into a whole, in my mind, like a United Nations, League of Nations concept, where like you could get a whole section of a continent, or maybe nodes over both of the two continents, because I believe it's east and west continents. I don't think they're connected physically. That they would share resources and materials and manpower to defend each other, and that when one of the other ones was under siege, you would bring your forces in, and then that would mean there would need to be a Axis or an allies team to fight against that, and then it would create huge groups of guilds and nodes forming together to do battle. I really could see, after things ramp up in the game, after the first 6 months of the game and everyone getting settled and understanding the concepts of it, I can really see people having large scale battles just out in the middle of the world. Not even over castles, just outright, like someone's moving a caravan, like a big caravan from one continent to the other, part of, like, say, a trade deal to help another node develop or defend from a siege. And I can see huge battles happening, especially naval battles, because it sounds like Ashes is making a pretty interesting naval concept for upgrading ships and combat, that there just could be huge battles in the ocean. And the whole concept of the whole thing is just mind-boggling to me, and I can't wait for it to come to fruition. And honestly, one thing I did come up with, and I don't mind if people steal this one, but a mercenary guild, a guild that is for hire, that during, every node gets a declaration period of, hey, you're under attack, you have so many days before the battle starts. You can add in, I think it seems like you can add alliance members in or whatever. You can have guilds out there that are just dedicated to sieges, where all they do is, maybe they don't have a dedicated home siege or node, but they join it in alliance, and they're paid 1,000,000 gold or whatever to help defend. And if they're successful, they get more, and if they're not, then they get they don't get anything, and they get a down payment. However, or they're paid monthly money to be part of a team, things like that. I could see a whole mercenary guild being made, at least 1 or 2 per server. And that's honestly something I plan to take my guild in and talk to my guild core members and see if that's something we want to do. Because I really love the whole mayor concept and owning a castle. But if we can make a boatload of money and go nuts and have all the fun PvP we can from being a mercenary group, I'm all for it. So that's a whole concept I gotta get into, and I'll find out in Alpha 1. So But yeah, so these were my big takeaways from this month's live stream. Obviously, I rambled at the end there, and I'm really excited for the nodes. Um, but yeah, so this is from everything I've seen. I'm still really happy with the progress of Ashes. I can't wait to start playing. Like I said, I'll be in Alpha 1, and whenever that is, I'll expect a lot more content coming out from me. Maybe daily live streams, or maybe not daily, but frequent content on Ashes, and all that fun stuff. So yeah, thanks guys for watching. I really appreciate it. If you could like and subscribe, if you hit the notification bell for more of my content, I'd really appreciate it. I play a lot of different games for the most part, and yeah, and I'll catch you guys next time.